I'm Jody Pritzel, author, here to introduce my new book, Gold-Fated Family. J.J. Brown, husband of Unsinkable Margaret Molly Brown. You know about her, right? Heroine of the Titanic, Kathy Bates portrayed her in the James Cameron Titanic movie. But what do you know about him? What about J.J.? If not for her husband, Margaret likely would not have been on the Titanic. 5 years ago, the book started here at the Molly Brown House Museum in Denver, Colorado. I had finished my training to be a volunteer tour guide docent. I was almost confident that I wouldn't totally screw up. And I'd stand here in JJ's study, and I'd look up at that Leadville mining map, and I'd wonder, how much gold was there, and how wealthy were the Browns? Smack dab in that Leadville mining map is the little Johnny. Was it fate? Was it luck that out of that 10 miles of claims, and each one of the little tiny black boxes that's a mining claim, they found the one spot with the gold? There was certainly a lot of tenacity. It took over a decade to find that gold in the little Johnny. From Chapter 4, Buried Treasure. The men were worn out. Workdays began in pitch darkness, riding in a crude elevator that was little more than a cage that grazed the walls. It rocked side to side, up and down, yanked by a rope. Water dripped on men. At the bottom of the shaft, faint lights from cap oil lamps disappeared as miners moved around corners. Men became so covered in dirt and dust that pickaxes appeared to be in the hands of phantoms. Finally, in the spring of 1892, they found it, gold. For J.J. Brown, the little Johnny discovery mattered. It was personal. He had spent nearly half his life working for others or on trivial schemes. That gold vein was 1,500 feet long, 250 feet wide, and 30 feet thick. That's just one of many, many facts I've got in Gold-Fated Family. But there was one other detail that I uncovered in my research. Say you're having guests over for dinner and you have one pie to serve and you slice that into 20 slivers. Well, each guest only gets a little taste, right? 1890s mining companies were like that. Lots of shareholders, except the Ibex Mining Company. Their pie, or their dividend pie, from the little Johnny, was cut into only 7 slices. 7 men split what would be the equivalent today of, oh, I almost spoiled it for you. So in love, Margaret and JJ now had money. They had 2 children. Lawrence was almost 5, and Helen was almost 3 when JJ discovered the gold. But then fate intervened. I'll tell you that story upstairs in JJ's bedroom. 5 years after the gold strike, the Denver newspapers blared that JJ was a millionaire. In this clipping you can see he had amassed a fortune. And in an 1895 publication, he was in the company of distinguished mining men, and his picture was featured, along with a biography. So you have it all. You're smitten by your wife, you have an heir, a daughter to raise, and a big house. It should have been enough, right? From Chapter 6, Wealthy Wives. Margaret was just 31 years old, a witness to her formerly robust husband lying helpless in his bed. JJ had always been a man who enjoyed climbing ladders into and out of mines, as well as riding horses and engaging in other physical work. His young children, too, must have been concerned. 8-year-old Helen in particular. She learned to control her emotions, often seeming older than her brother. Curious about the hand that fate dealt their father, they might have peeked into their father's room. Sister, tell me, you heard a word. Did he say something? No, he can't speak. How long has it been? A week. Did you see his eyes open? Once in a while. With good care and prayers, JJ slowly awakened but suffered from paralysis and could not hold a pen. Each day he worked to recover and slowly gain strength. Once he was able to write again, JJ claimed the stroke made his penmanship steadier, but the thoughts came slower. J.J.'s stroke might have set off the trouble. That's what he called it, the marital discord. One of the couple fed off every new experience and every new opportunity presented. They grabbed it. That was Margaret. The other clung to what they knew, avoiding all risks. That was J.J. And then the notoriety shifted from J.J. Brown to Mrs. J.J. Brown as a leader of Denver charity fundraising events. They had different parenting styles. And I'll tell you a story about J.J. and Margaret and their children downstairs in the entrance hall. Is everything perfect in your family? Have you been through teenage angst when your children want to be with their friends more than you? Has one of your children ever lost their way? Neither J.J. nor Margaret had come from money, but their children, Lawrence and Helen, never knew their parents when they didn't have money. There was domestic staff to open the door, light the fireplace, saddle the ponies, clean up after the dogs. That's not to say there wasn't a legacy of generosity, a lot of charity support. Orphans were a particular cause that they supported, and relatives with a lot of financial support. But there was a lot of drama that happened. Imagine you see your parents' name in the newspapers all the time for their wealth or for their good deeds, or maybe not for their good deeds. And then you're the son, and you are newspaper copy for something that should have stayed private. Chapter 9, Mama's Boy Lawrence. In 1905, Lawrence took off on horseback to celebrate his 18th birthday, disappearing without explaining his whereabouts to his father. When the son returned home to 1340 Penn, J.J. was waiting to confront Lawrence, and the family squabble turned into fresh copy of the Browns in Denver newspapers. Where have you been? I don't have to explain anything anymore. I'm 18. His father charged back, you're a cigarette fiend. I'll do as I please. It's affecting your brain. You can't tell me what to do anymore. Lawrence reached down to the ground and grabbed a handful of rocks. Don't throw those, Lawrence. Don't you dare. As he flung the rocks at J.J., Lawrence let loose with a string of abusive language. J.J. took long strides back into 1340 Penn, well aware of what he was about to do. His son was right. He was no longer a child as of that day. He was an adult. In the entryway, below the shining gold ceiling, next to the ornately carved staircase, J.J. placed the phone receiver to his ear, and he turned the crank. Get me the police. I'm under attack. Officer Gannon responded quickly to the millionaire miner's home where he met J.J. J.J. pointed at Lawrence. See him? That's my son. He's abusive. Arrest him. Are you sure, Mr. Brown? You can't settle this within the family? I insist you arrest him. Officer Gannon escorted Lawrence Brown to a Denver police station. An agitated J.J. arrived, still worked up about his son's lack of respect. He addressed the sergeant who was working the desk and thought his father would say the altercation with his son was a mistake. You may hold him here overnight. In the morning, I am filing a warrant for assault and battery against Lawrence Palmer Brown. Lawrence spent his 18th birthday in jail. His distraught mother caught a train and raced back to Denver from Newport, Rhode Island. The charges evaporated, and there was no follow-up of the incident in the Denver newspapers, and J.J. hired private instructors to ensure Lawrence completed a high school education. His son's job for the next several years would be to disappoint his father consistently. Fate and drama. It's all in the book. Boy, I don't know how much drama you can actually put into a book, but I did. And I hope you enjoy Gold-Fated Family. Here's the summary. When the Titanic sank in 1912, J.J. Brown was a continent away and ignored by reporters more eager to tell the tale of his heroic wife, Margaret Molly Brown. 20 years prior, he and Eben Smith made news when they struck gold in Leadville, Colorado's Little Johnny mine. In the early years, JJ and Margaret were a team. He a hard-working mine manager and she a mother devoted to their children, Lawrence and Helen. Having risen from poverty, JJ and Margaret were unprepared for newspaper notoriety when they moved to Denver, Colorado. Then came lavish trips to Europe, private schools, and second homes. For a time, their marriage worked until his penchant for secrecy and fear of death clashed with his wife's desire to whirl and twirl through adventures, continents, and charities. And when the children were eager to exit the limelight, escaping the shadow of their millionaire father and socialite mother, a ship sank, thrusting Margaret into the national spotlight as unsinkable. The Browns were a family whose heart was omitted from the story crafted as the unsinkable Molly Brown for Broadway and Hollywood. Writers left out the children, generosity, unmet expectations, respect, and loyalty. Gold Fated Family tells the true and human story of the legendary Browns. Creating this book was a great joy for me. I hope you enjoy it. You can buy it at Amazon.com. And if nothing else, after 5 years of work, I have a lot more information to share with guests at the Molly Brown House Museum. Thank you for watching my videos and buying my books.